Hello. Well, I figured we were in the Holy Land, we might as well stop by Jerusalem. So I wanted to take you to the Mount of Olives. The Mount of Olives is a hill that you can see behind me here, right over, right kind of opposite of the old Jerusalem, where the temple was and all the biblical action took place. But so much took place right back here. Let me show you some of the places. So right here, you'll see this is the Garden of Gethsemane. So Jesus crossed from over there, across the Kidron Valley, into the Garden of Gethsemane. Even now, there's these beautiful, huge, very old olive trees, maybe as old as when Jesus was actually there praying in the garden. But that's not the only thing that happened here. Lots of other things. So going up a little bit more up here, we see there's places such as where Jesus wept over Jerusalem as he looked over the city and just kind of in sorrow. There's also the place of Jesus' ascension. It was on this mountain that he ascended into heaven to go up to the Father so that he could send the Holy Spirit upon us. We also would know if we would kind of head back up over the hill, we would get to the place of Bethany and Bethphage. Bethany was a place where Mary and Martha and Lazarus lived, and where Lazarus was raised from the tomb. So if you ever go there, you can actually go to the tomb where Lazarus was raised. If you look back here to the other side, you can't quite see it, but on this hillside, there's also the place where Saint Stephen, the first martyr, was killed, right outside of the Lion's Gate. Lots and lots of action and different things happened in this place, in the Mount of Olives. So much actually in the Holy Land. It's neat to think about these things, especially as we have just celebrated Easter, and we think of all the many realities of Jesus' life as he lived here on earth. So tomorrow is Divine Mercy Sunday. It's the last day in the octave of Easter, in this beautiful 8 days of Easter. It's also a powerful day to receive many blessings and graces from God. I will be live streaming the Mass tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. So you can find the link on the email that I sent, or just go to the web page and you can just click on the vlog and live streaming site. That live streaming site is the same site for all of them. Also, if you desire, you can come to confession. So on Divine Mercy Sunday we'll offer confessions from 1 to 5 o'clock. We've been doing that every Saturday as well. But on Divine Mercy Sunday 1 to 5 o'clock there'll be confessions. So you can stay on if you want for retreat. Have a blessed day. Prayer is a development of a relationship with God. This dialogue that happens back and forth. I spoke last time, just yesterday, about this whole sense of God being a Trinity, and how this Trinity is a relationship of the three persons in one God, and that we're all invited, drawn into that relationship. So community and communion is a huge, huge deal. In fact, we even talk about communion, right? Jesus giving us his very body and blood. This communion, this Jesus, this Eucharist is the very thing that allows us to be united with him and actually with one another. The Mass is actually the highest form of prayer, a prayer when we all come together. But it's not exactly the starting point. So what does it look like for this communion to exist, and how important is it for us? I want to explore that some more with you as we transition to the end of the retreat into our lives and wanting this retreat to have an impact upon them. So I mentioned last time about the whole sense of gospel joy, right? And how the gospel joy that Pope Francis speaks about is this missionary joy. That we really do have a great joy when it comes to other people coming to know God. For instance, experiencing Him in prayer. Why are we not always as joyful as Christians as it seems? That's probably the reason, is because we're oftentimes not too geared into a constant desire and intention to draw other people to come to know God. We just never grew up with it, I suppose, but it's really our calling. I say this as introductory to prayer, and how in our own prayer lives that community is actually extremely important. If prayer is about developing and entering us into a relationship and a communion with God, then there's probably something about our communion with other people that plays into it. We have to realize that we're a bit tainted in a very me and Jesus culture, where we don't really maybe understand this for its value. I mentioned last time that might be the reason that we struggle with prayer. That we've attended maybe many classes and tried, but never seemed to really catch on to it. It could be because we're not really journeying with somebody else, that there isn't a communal aspect to it. It's kind of like the charisms. I've spoken some about the charisms, right? I think most of you would be at least familiar with the word. This sense of these gifts that God gives us individually through our baptism, that we're able to do just supernatural things because God works through us in a very special way, doing a specific function. For instance, somebody might have the charism of hospitality, so that when they're around other people or other people come to their house, people are just lifted up and drawn closer to Christ. When one recognizes a charism and puts it into practice, it's like their activity then becomes 10 times more powerful because God chooses to use that as an avenue of grace. So think about that in prayer. That what would happen if we ourselves journeyed with another person, or we took somebody under our wings, so to speak, and began to teach them? Perhaps for both involved, we might grow by leaps and bounds. God might multiply this tenfold. I think it's something to give serious consideration to. I'll explore a little bit kind of how I envision that to happen even here at the parish. You may have seen advertised these different classes on prayer. One of them is Prayer 101 and one of them is Prayer 201. And they're meant to give us some help, just like I hope this retreat has been of some assistance to you. But they're meant to be done in a sense in community, where people come together, and it's really, the classes really are really kind of a growth and a journeying together in prayer. So each class is actually, in a sense, uniquely its own. So you can kind of come back several times and keep getting things out of it. But really the idea is that as we come to know Christ and we begin to share that with another, it's a place to take them, so that you have an opportunity to journey with them. In that, you can grow yourself, and then they grow. We begin to experience then this immense joy as these types of things happen. It's the same kind of thing that I mentioned in terms of community. That, I made kind of that bold assessment that Christian community is rooted in missionary community. Meaning that when we really become bonded together, it's not just seeing somebody at Mass, but it's actually like being with them, like journeying with them, and then as they come to know Christ, then then you're filled with great joy, and there's a sense that as you go to Mass, you see them and you're thrilled that they're there. And then you're thrilled as you begin to lead them to help somebody else, one of their friends that doesn't know Christ, come to know Him. And that person actually even looks upon you as like a grandpa or grandma in the faith, somebody who helped them by helping the person who helped them. When these kind of bonds begin to be formed, an intense, powerful community starts to form. Maybe that seems radically different than what we've experienced, but I think it's really the way forward, especially in the challenges that our culture faces. Maybe it seems like we're getting a little far afield from prayer, but perhaps it's not far afield at all. Perhaps this is the very thing that's needed. That for us to grow in our prayer life and a relationship with God is we have to take the next step and begin to share that with others. Someone who teaches another learns so much themselves. Perhaps it kind of works the same way. That when we are willing to share what we have, even though it might be extremely limited, God will see that and say, oh, I better have you one step ahead of the other. So He continues to pour out grace upon you so that you can teach the others. Didn't Jesus promise us the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit that would come down and teach us all things? Let's depend upon that more and more. Rooted in the very mission of Jesus. He came to save us. That's why he came down from heaven. That's why He died on the cross, to save us. And His very means of saving us was that He proclaimed Himself, first of all. He preached the gospel. And then He entrusted those He left behind to do the same. Those drawn in, those who belong to Him. So if we belong to Him, then it means that we're meant to share this faith with others. So I hope you've learned some things, and I think you have, probably even enough to begin to journey and to teach someone else. We only have one day left of our retreat. I'm not sure. I'm certainly going to continue with the vlogs. If you have any ideas or any thoughts, if we should continue on kind of another type topic, we could maybe do that. But at any rate, for sure, the retreat continues in our hearts, that this is a lifelong journey. Tomorrow then I will conclude with some talk on Pentecost and just the reflection upon the Holy Spirit and how the Holy Spirit forms us in prayer and in community. So have a beautiful rest of your day.